Limbus Company's rerun of the Murder on the Warp Express event added 2 new identities into the game. The other day I've gone over the Prince of La Manchaland Merceau and all the things that make him a truly incredible identity. And today it's Warp Heathcliff's turn. W Corp L4 cleanup agent CCA Heathcliff is the brand new addition to the vault of W Corp, a beloved faction that we haven't seen for over a year now. The new ID comes loaded with brand new weapons and armor, overcharge straight from Library of Ruina, and sadly, a lot of issues. But what kind of issues? And is Heathcliff strong despite them? Well, in today's video I want to dive into exactly that, by first taking a look at his kit and then checking out his performance in the Charge or Charge Envy composition, as well as how to play him, and we'll end off with whether you should get him. But before we start, allow me to remind you that most of my viewers are not subscribed. So if you find yourself coming back to my videos or end up enjoying this one, consider subscribing. It takes just 1 second and helps me out a lot. Now let's get to Heathcliff. We'll start with his kit. Heathcliff has a lot of health, average speed and a high defense level. His Sin Affinity spread consists of Gluttony, Gloom and Envy, with an Envy defense. His first skill is Congestion Cleanup. It clashes at up to 15, gains coin and clash power from charge potency and count, and gives Heathcliff 4 charge count while inflicting 1 rupture count and 2 potency. His second skill is Boost Elbow Blade. It rolls up to 21, gives Heathcliff charge barrier based on charge potency at combat start, and gains coin power from charge potency and by consuming charge count. The coins of the skill give Heathcliff 6 count back, and inflict 1 rupture count and 3 potency. His third skill is Rip Space CCA Overdrive. This skill clashes at up to 32, gets unbreakable coins at high charge potency or low HP, gets final power when losing a clash with these unbreakable coins, gets coin power by consuming 10 charge count, and gains clash power from charge potency. The coins of this skill give Heathcliff 4 charge count, and the last coin utilizes the coin start timing again to consume up to 10 charge count in order to gain extra coin power, before inflicting 2 rupture and dealing slash damage equal to part of the coin's final damage, scaling with charge potency. As for Heathcliff's defensive skill, he gets CCA Overcharge, a clashable guard that gives him overcharge, removes his one and only stagger threshold, and adds an extra copy of his skill 3 to his upcoming skills if used at less than 15 charge count. As for his passive, Heathcliff has 2. The first one is defense-oriented charge. This passive grants Heathcliff 1 charge potency every time he consumes 10 charge count, as is the norm with charge identities now. But it also provides him with defense level up equal to charge potency, up to 6. His second passive is Congestion Cleaning Armor. It requires 5 Envy owned to activate, and its effects are as follows. If Heathcliff is at less than half HP at combat start, he gains shield based on charge potency. Right before getting hit, Heathcliff also gets a shield equal to his charge potency, up to 3 times per turn. If he gets charge count by using a skill that goes over the charge count cap, the skill that gave him the charge count deals 3% more damage for every overcapped charge count, up to 15% or 5 count. Heathcliff's support passive requires 3 Envy Resonance, and it allows the ally with the earliest deployment order to turn charge count that goes over the cap into charge barrier, with a maximum of 3 stacks per turn. This also works on ego skills. As you can see, the kit of this unit is incredibly short and simple, which usually is the case with Warp Corp identities. However, I also want to take a look at his unique effect, Overcharge. Overcharge maxes out at a stack of 1 and has a ton of effects. It makes Heathcliff immobilized, taking away his ability to act for a turn. This also makes him take less damage, scaling with charge potency. At turn start, it gives him charge barrier based on charge potency, and at turn end, Heathcliff gets 10 charge count and 2 attack power up next turn, while losing overcharge. He also gains aggro based on charge potency, and when Heathcliff is hit, he gets 1 charge count and 1 load next turn, up to 5 times per turn. The effect is lost if Heathcliff is in panic, corrosion or stagger at turn start. Pretty lengthy effect, but it's an integral part of Heathcliff's kit, so it gets a pass. With this, we're done with his kit. Yeah, it's very short. So now we can move on to looking at Warp Heathcliff in combat. First of all, let's look at his gameplay loop and how to use him in a way that maximizes his value. As with all charge identities, his overarching goal is to stack charge count, consume it, and stack it again, to consume it again. Nobody is shocked by this. To stack charge, Heathcliff has a couple options. Using his base skills allows him to slowly climb up in charge while dealing a bit of damage, especially if you use his skill 2 before you hit 6 charge, as it won't consume the effect then and will set you up with a lot of count. The second option is Heathcliff's Guard. This skill deals no damage and prevents Heathcliff from moving next turn. In return, it grants him 10 charge count, with extra count being gained from charge barrier and getting hit. On top of that, Heathcliff gains buffs like load and attack power up from this, and also creates an extra copy of his skill 3, guaranteeing that as soon as he comes out of his immobilization, he will hit the strongest skill 3 that he can get access to. I think it's pretty obvious what the intended path to take here is. His defense has a lot of effects baked into it, to entice you into using it and skipping a turn to get a value right after. Additionally, his skills 1 and 2 are not good at all, though we'll get into all his issues later. But it's true that you don't lose much value by going for the turn skip, especially if a skill 3 was already used in this rotation or if it's still out of sight. Now I do need to inform you that there currently is a bug with Heathcliff's Guard. His guard is clashable, meaning you can get extra sanity by winning a clash with it. However, going for a clash with his guard breaks his gameplay loop, as the free skill 3 that Heathcliff gets is spawned in the uppermost slot, meaning you cannot use it when you get out of the overcharge turn. This does not happen if you don't clash with the skill, and will be fixed in the upcoming patch. But for now, this bugged interaction does not allow you to both get the value of the extra SP from clashing and the power up and load from using skill 3 right after being overcharged. This makes Heathcliff feel a lot worse to use, but it's not the only thing that holds him back, though it is the only one that isn't there intentionally. With the charge gain figured out, the consumption of it is even simpler. You just use CCA Overdrive, his skill 3. This skill can consume up to 20 charge count at once. So if you secure a stack of 16 charge via external effects or with a setup, you can get 2 charge potency in one turn with this skill. The reward you get for consuming all that charge is a decently powerful 4-coin skill with a greatly strengthened 4th coin, which also deals bonus damage equal to part of the damage that it deals. A particularly interesting part of this effect is the fact that the bonus damage comes in the form of slash damage. Usually, this kind of bonus has a sin affinity, but tying it to a damage type actually changes things quite a lot. A damage bonus with a damage type is affected by damage type resistances, meaning it will deal less damage against slash resistant targets, and more against slash weak ones. This is particularly effective against staggered enemies, as their resistances to all damage types get forced up to ×2. This means that Heathcliff's skill 3, when used against a staggered target, will deal double damage with its coins, as expected, and then the extra damage will be half of the already doubled damage of the last coin. But due to the bonus damage having the slash type, it gets doubled again, providing a disproportionate amount of damage, which makes CCA Overdrive much better against staggered targets than you would expect from looking at its normal performance. This is about it for what his entire game plan looks like. You can get some SP and charge count with his basic skills, and then you try to time his guard in such a way that he gets out of overcharge with a bunch of count and a fresh skill 3 when the enemy gets staggered, so you can get the most value out of his bonus damage effect. Can't stagger the enemy quickly? Tough luck, I guess you'll have to hit his skill 3 normally and go again. That's about it. The one and only ego quote-unquote synergy he has is AEDD. This skill gives charge count based on missing health, and also grants a passive that uses up charge to heal Heathcliff, with it actually giving charge before consuming it if Heath is under 40% HP. The issue here is getting him under 40%. If you have him tank skills he is not weak to, that also don't put any effects like bleed or rupture on him, getting Heathcliff to low health takes more time than it's worth. But if you have him take pierce attacks or skills that inflict damaging debuffs, it gets a lot easier to reach that 40% threshold. However, once you do, you don't really want to take more damage to actually activate the ego passive, as getting inflicted with more effects will spell certain doom as they accumulate, and fatal damage will not get out-healed by 2.5% HP for every hit taken. And well, while we're on the negative side of things, let's take a look at the reality of using Warp Corp Heathcliff, and what exactly makes him far from a good identity. First of all, his skills. As a charge ID, Heathcliff is expected to deal higher than average physical damage to compensate for his lack of a damaging status effect. In reality, his damage, especially on his skills 1 and 2, is non-existent. Neither of the skills have any damage bonuses baked into them, and the offense levels on both skills are pathetically low, with no way to increase them. This means that the skills deal damage that is incredibly subpar, and not only by modern standards. Speaking of damage modifiers, Heathcliff's passive is supposed to be that. The passive gives him extra damage when he gains charge while having reached the cap already. Surely this effect is good, right? Well, not at all. See, the third skill of Warp Heathcliff consumes charge count before regaining part of it, so the effect never goes through. as you never overcap even if you start the skill at 20 charge count. The same goes for skill 2. The passive simply cannot activate, because you cannot overcap with the skill. The only skill that can activate the passive without the outside help of buffs or ego gifts is literally Heathcliff's weakest skill, and even his skill 1 cannot get 15% worth of value, as it can only overcap by 4, reaching a 12% buff. Yeah, the 15% damage buff is pretty much exclusive to the mirror dungeons. Why is this effect designed this way? I have no clue. Unironically, this feels like a last-minute addition that was not tested in the slightest. Next up, the defensive skill and overcharge. We've talked about the bug that spawns the extra skill 3 in the wrong slot already. And it will be fixed in a couple of days, so I won't be too hung up on it. However, the overcharge effect has a bunch of weird design of its own. Mainly, my issue lies in the charge potency scalings. Overcharge is a state you enter in order to get access to the skill that grants you charge potency. So looking away effects like that is kind of backwards already. And actually, let's look at the scalings up close. Damage mitigation and charge barrier aren't that big of a deal. As long as your Heathcliff isn't trying to tank fatal damage, he'll be just fine, as he doesn't run the risk of getting staggered. What is a large sin though is locking away aggro. Without aggro, the chances of Heathcliff being targeted by a meaningful amount of attacks is low, so aggro is here to help him actually secure extra count as well as load for himself. And with no way to gain a decent amount of aggro early, Heathcliff will rely entirely on luck in order to gain access to more power on his third skill in his first rotation. This makes him feel a lot worse to play, as not only are you not acting for a turn, but that turn of inactivity is also not compensated for by load gain, as Heathcliff just won't get targeted until he's done this a couple times. Finally, Heathcliff's skill 3. This skill is not very good. It's fairly close to Warp Corp Dawn's skill 3 in terms of damage, and her kit comes loaded with a good skill 2 and no need for scaling. As I said earlier, Overdrive's bonus damage effect double dips into resistances, making it great at dealing with staggered targets. And that much is true. If you look at the performance of CCA Overdrive against staggered enemies, the numbers it puts up are actually quite good. But that's about it. The skill, much like Warp Corp Heathcliff's entire existence, doesn't do much to actually get to the point when the enemy is staggered, and as such is not of much help to the team until you reach the turn that usually comes when you're about to win anyways. Lastly, I do also want to point out that Heathcliff, as part of the Charge Envy team, wants to contribute to Envy Resonance, but his turn of inactivity due to overcharge doesn't let him do that on a lot of turns. Now, the other skills that he wants to press are all Envy, so there's at least some semblance of balance. But this effectively makes him dead weight in 6 slot encounters, as you lose access to effects like write them all down as a counter on every overcharge turn. So yeah, Heathcliff has a ton of issues, and the absolute most important one is his lack of damage. I must remind you that he is a charge identity, meaning he has no damaging effects to make up for his disgusting lack of output. Yes, he has a tiny bit of rupture, but it's effectively cosmetic and exists only so he can be forced into hybrid teams in the mirror dungeons. Overall, I am honestly disappointed with this unit. Heathcliff has some really dope animations, and overall a cool design that really speaks to me. You can probably tell by now that my favorite Risk of Rain survivor is Loader, and just look at them, they look exactly the same. So when I saw that his kit lacked damage bonuses, I was already sad. And when I saw the damage that his skills do, that sadness only grew deeper. We've been waiting for a W Corp ID for a long time, and getting this after all that time really isn't very fun. Granted, he's good in the mirror dungeons, but like, what isn't? Should you get this identity? Absolutely not. Heathcliff is just not worth the 400 shards straight up, in my opinion. And pulling for him is a decision of all time, let's just put it like that. Legit, you could get more value out of multi-crack Heathcliff, and that guy is a 1-year-old 2-star identity. And yeah, that's about it. I'm really sad about this, not gonna lie. I wanted him to be good. But alas, Kim Ji-hoon decided that Charge will remain bad for yet another season. Thanks, director. If you guys disagree or have something to add, feel free to leave a comment. But do note that I refuse to engage with anything that tries to cope for him by calling him a tank. Because if you need to tank damage, your team building and piloting abilities are already beyond saving. If you enjoyed the video at any point, leave a like to let me know. And if you want to see more like this, consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Goodbye!